All right. Welcome back to the Excuse Me Brother podcast show. I'm your host, Brother Jay. With me, I
Let
got
me out. I'm trapped. He won't let me leave.
Nope, you can't go anywhere, sir.
Won't let me go home.
Nope, can't go anywhere. Tonight, I got with me my co-hosts, Brother Tay and producer Jay. But we got a special treat for y'all because we also have a special guest for tonight too. It's our first guest in a long time, really, and I think that this is a very important time. So we thought that we bring in the experts on this one. So I'd like to introduce to you, everyone, uh, Miguelina Camilo, Esquire. Did I say it correctly? Yes, I had to add in that Esquire at the end. Miguelina, can you just inform the people about who you are and what you do, and just tell us a little bit about yourself as we as we you know as we have you on tonight.
Someone's nervous.
Sure. Well,
No, I'm not.
yeah,
I'm not nervous. I'm
we just
good.
started. Well, thank you. I was actually invited by a very good friend of mine who I went to law school with. So I'm a lawyer. I went to New York Law School here in the city, and I've been a lawyer for over 10 years now. And I think my expertise is related to my work in election law. So I have worked as associate counsel at the City Board of Elections. I was a commissioner at the Board of Elections. I had my own practice and did a lot of work with families in the Bronx and criminal defense work. And I, love being a lawyer. I was the first lawyer in my family, first one to go to college in my family. My family's from Dominican Republic. Real American dream story, I would say. My dad was a small business owner and really came to New York for those opportunities for his kids to have, access to education, which he didn't have. So I love, talking and informing people about something as important as our right to vote. And with these elections coming up next week, I'm very excited to be here and talk to you guys about that.
So let's
We're
rewind a
excited
little
to.
bit, right? You said that you were invited by a friend of yours you went to law school with. That friend of ours is Dora Linda Dios Brito Esquire, right? Right.
That's right.
Dora so Tayshawn and Jeremy, Dora is a former classmate of mine at St. John's University.
Hmm.
Originally I wanted her to come on to discuss this with us, but she introduced me to Miguelina because she felt that Miguelina was a better fit because she said that Miguelina is more well versed in this area. So that's why Miguelina is here. Remember, originally I
Nice save.
wanted. I'm sorry.
Nice save. Because man, did that come out wrong the first way you said that.
What, Miguelina?
No,
Oh,
you'll see. You'll see it later. It's okay.
I might. This is why we do post production. Um.
The zinger from Brother Jay or Brother
Mhm.
Tay.
Oh, that's why. Okay, so it's so as you see, we're kind of very informal, kind of laid back here. You said that you were born and raised in the Bronx, right?
I was born in the Dominican Republic
Oh,
and raised
She moved
in
there.
Washington.
and raised in Washington Heights. Okay, so when did you move to the
Little,
Bronx?
little Dr.
Exactly, Little DR. I've been in the Bronx now almost 10 years. So my legal career, being an attorney, has always been in the Bronx, and I live now in Riverdale.
Okay,
Ah,
that's
The
cool.
place that doesn't want to be associated with the Bronx. Can't get
yeah.
away.
Actually, I
Can't
grew up
escape.
there. I grew up there as well, and I just recently found
You
out that
did?
it's technically part of Manhattan.
No, just
No,
that's
that's
No.
Marble Hill. That's
It's what?
wrong. Marble
Marble.
Hill
Yeah,
Right.
no,
is.
that's where I grew up.
Oh, that's where you grew up.
It's
Okay, okay.
right there. So
Oh, so you a Harlem boy then? Yeah. Get the bully J then.
So you were born in Puerto Rico. Wow, how did I get that
DR.
messed up?
come
Jesus.
on,
DR.
man.
So
Born
you're
in.
born in DR, and you came to New York. Your full family came to DR, and you said that your father wanted better educational opportunities for you and your siblings.
Yeah, so my dad came here when he was 19, here to New York. Started working early on, and I was still in the Dominican Republic with my mom. I was born there, and then we came later. So then my siblings were born here in New York. And he pretty much set up a life of, working as a bodega owner. So he had a bodega. So I'm the daughter of a bodega owner. I worked in that bodega while I was going to college. And that definitely, the bodega life is like part of the New York experience.
Absolutely.
Like we
Yes.
Did you have a bodega cat?
We do,
That's
That
how
was
you
the
know it's a good
supervisor.
of course.
I actually,
That cat has, duties like pest control duties.
That's a good point.
so since
go ahead. I'm sorry, Tay. Go ahead.
no, since you moved here with your mother, and I know you have siblings, so that would make you the oldest, correct?
That's right. I'm the oldest.
Okay, and I know that you went to law school. Did your siblings also did they follow your footsteps and go to college as well?
My sister did. She actually did marketing, and she works now at JP Morgan. And then my brother actually went like the entrepreneur route. So his story is really cool, similar to my dad, like kind of having your own business. My brother is into going to garage sales, estate sales, online sales, buys things, and then resells on eBay and like Facebook Marketplace. So he is really enjoying doing that.
That's
He's a
awesome.
hustler.
Is your father's bodega still open?
No, he actually closed the last one, which is the one I worked at. He closed it when I was in law school. And I always joke, like, I'm so glad he closed that store because I would still be working there every weekend. Like, he still had it. Because it was like, I started working with him at 15. Like, I turned 15. He's like, okay, every Saturday, that's it. This is your life. You're coming to work with me on the weekends, summers, any vacation, like from college. Like, I was there working.
So did it instill in you a sense of work ethic and a need to provide for yourself that a lot of us, I'll just be frank when I say this, that a lot of American kids don't really have that same drive and passion to do for themselves, or a lot of American kids, because I it's a common theme I know with a lot of immigrants or descendants of immigrants, that where they come to America and their parents instill in them, no, you have to work hard because I didn't come over here for you to slack off. You know what I mean? That do you get that sense from when your father was working or making you work?
Oh yeah, 1,000%. That is where in the bodega I learned like my work ethic, the value of money, because I worked so hard for the little bit of money that my dad would give me. And I also really learned to interact. Like I came from a Spanish household where I was very overprotected. Like my parents were like, what's it called? Like just hovered and like were very strict. And the bodega was like my way out in a way because I got to work and be amongst my community and meet all different types of people. And that's also where I kept growing my love for helping people, understanding simple things like understanding the language. I would read letters for people that would like be our clients, our customers. As soon as I was telling them like I'm in college, I think I'm going to go to law school, I'm going to be a lawyer, I just became like a community advocate for a lot of them, just to explain things the same way I had always been doing for my parents, who also had like the language barrier. And I think a lot of our families that come here, this is a foreign land. They don't want to mess up. They want to follow the system. So they're always very scared to just take risks and ever even get in trouble in a way. So I, being the oldest, always kind of guided my parents through that process. And it just really fostered, and supported my role as an attorney in my life. Like I was just kind of advocating for them early on, and then it made sense to go to law school and be a lawyer and continue to do that for other people.
It's a good way to be closer to the community that you want to serve.
It's the best way, technically.
I agree.
She served them in 3 different ways.
In many different ways, right? She'll serve chopped cheese sandwiches and legal advice, right?
I love that. Like people would walk in and be like, I knew how they wanted their coffee. I knew what sandwich they wanted. I knew like exactly, like people are such creatures of habit. I am too, but like
Absolutely.
people will come and buy the same thing every single day. Like it was just, you knew them.
Oh,
already.
that's beautiful. I think that's
Regulars.
beautiful. So all of this drove you obviously to become a lawyer, right? Um, did your parents support that vision and dream when you told them that this is what you wanted to do? And how can I say, how instrumental were they in, your studies of the law?
Yeah, they definitely were supportive and were my biggest, pushing me always to make sure that I got an education. They thought being a lawyer was actually the best fit for me, and from a young age was telling me that's what I should be
Hmm.
considering. But being in school and you've gone to college, you've been in school, it's tough for parents that haven't been through that to support you really.
Yeah, tell you had something to say.
Oh yeah, we never asked what school she went to.
We got
I
to
know
find
it's like
out.
it's a lot hard. How?
I'm gonna ask, where did you go to school, Miguelina?
So undergrad, I went to NYU.
Mm,
That was like my dream school, so I was happy I got to go there. And then New York Law School was my law school, also downtown in the city.
Mhm.
So I, stayed close. I never dormed. I never went away to college. Thinking back now, I wish I had because I was
Same.
With the commute.
space for myself. Yeah, but I stayed local.
I must
Yeah.
say, even though I was only in Queens, commute. At first, I was commuting, but once I saw what the workload was, I was like, nah, I gotta stay on campus. And it was honestly, I can say it was the best decision I did make for my college career, because just cutting out that commute, hour and a half every day, saved a lot of time, saved a lot of energy. I got more work done, and it was just an overall better experience for me when I went away. And obviously, I had more freedom. I encourage all kids to go away for college if you can. And if you can't, circumstances may be, but it is what it is. I very much encourage children to go away for college, to just especially if you live in New York, because we're so used to New York and seeing everything convenient for us. It's nice to get away from the city and see other parts of the country, other parts of the state, even. So I hear a lot of people who didn't go away for college say, "Yeah, I wish I did," and I tell them, "Yeah, you kind of should have, but it is neither here nor there." So
Yeah.
Oh
after
Jesus Christ!
what?
Nothing.
After undergrad, you said you went to New York Law, right? What was law school like? Was it a very different was it a shell shock for you when you went from undergrad to law school?
Um, yes, because I was always a good student. And I always just, attended classes, did my work, and I would be fine. But law school kind of just breaks you down
Mm,
completely and tells you everything you've learned and the way you write, the way you process information. We're gonna change all that. We're gonna break you down to think like a lawyer or to analyze things in a different way. So I really struggled, and even my first semester, I got like a C, which I had never seen in my life. So it was shocking to me. I know, like to me, it was difficult to kind of understand how could that be possible with someone that like I had always dedicated myself, but regardless, I made it through. I stuck with it. There's some people that didn't come back after that first semester, and it really is time consuming. And I was always lucky I was able to just go to school full time. I didn't work.
Mm.
I had a lot of friends that did work, had to work, went to school part time, did the night program, evening program.
Oof.
So I always thought like, okay, if they can do it, they're making all these sacrifices, they're working and going to school, like I just have to get through it. And then forget school for 3 years, law school, then you have to take the bar
Mm.
exam. And I dedicated a whole summer studying for the bar exam, because that is also like a whole other animal that you hope to pass that first time. There's people that struggle, and the New York bar exam is one of the hardest exams in the country. So I'm just glad that's all behind me. I'm talking about it now. I'm like getting like
Anxiety.
she's having war flashbacks.
It's
Oh
PTSD.
yeah.
yeah, man.
Actually, did you pass the bar exam on your first try?
I
Wow,
did. Yes,
congratulations.
yes. I was so happy. But I legit, like, I had a good friend in law school that was in my same grade. Dora was younger than
Mhm.
us. But like we locked ourselves up in a house for the summer. Like it was her family's house for 2 months. All we did was wake up, go to class, study, come home, eat, fall asleep. Like my family would come and like give me food, and I'd be like almost, of course, like just half
Mm.
dead. Like, just feed me food. It was very, very intense, and that's like all you can think about. And I remember the night before the bar exam, I could not sleep. I just was tossing and turning because you just don't know what they're going to test you
Yeah.
on. You know,
Oh,
there's like 30 different areas you could be tested on. So I just kept repeating like points that I knew. So yeah, it was just very intense, but I always kept thinking I'll be that one person that I studied so hard and I still fail, but there's just no way. If you do the work, you stay consistent, you can't study for it in like a week. You have to dedicate the appropriate amount of time and just stick with it. And then, yeah,
So that
you
when
get
you
through it.
find out that you've passed the bar exam, that sense of relief must have been exhilarating.
Yeah, yeah, it was great. I was actually already interning at where it came to be my first job. And oh my God, let me tell you, I'm not that old, but listen to this story. Um, that was 10 years ago, 11 years. Wait, I've been an attorney 10 years. Yeah, so like 11 years ago, I didn't have a smartphone. Like I didn't have internet on my phone. I just had a regular day,
Okay.
like,
Yeah.
just a phone that you made phone calls with. And I get a text from a friend of mine who was like, "Oh, the bar exam results came out this morning. Did you pass?" But I couldn't access my email on my
Mm.
phone.
Ah.
I had like a 30-minute commute to my job to where I would get access to a computer. Oh,
Oh.
I was panicking. I
Mhm.
had to log in, an email, and then I'm like reading the email, and thank God it said, "Congratulations, you
Man,
oh,
passed."
that must have been the worst 30 minutes of your life.
oh, that commute must have been great.
Mm.
Just cursing out the train on the bus, like I need you to go faster. Like,
And they actually passed. They released so they always release the results like right before Thanksgiving. And this year they released them even sooner.
Mm.
So that list came out like a week
Wait,
ago.
wait, hold on.
way
Excuse me,
to
sister.
just to
Excuse me,
no no
sister.
no 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 no.
Wait. No, okay, so quick heads up, Miguelina. On this show, when we want to interrupt each other, or when we have something to say, or we will address each other by saying, "Excuse me, brother." But obviously, we'll say, "Excuse me, sister," when it comes to you. So, excuse me, sister. Why do they release the results before Thanksgiving? Are they trying to ruin
You have
y'all
a
holidays?
I
absolutely
was gonna
just so you can
say,
have a heart attack as you no. It's so after you finish or you pass or fail, you can eat your preen away.
I was
It's
gonna
very
say
obvious.
you could stress eat.
You can stress eat or stress drink, whatever one you want to take it as. It's like, hey, look, you got it.
Yeah. The exam is always in July. Like there's two. There's July and February. So I took the July one. So August, September, October, like it takes 3 months or so for them to process all that data and like they release the
Mm.
results. It just so happens to be
This is
it's usually in
this is
November.
a terrible horror
Similar
movie.
law school law school too. Law school, our exams were beginning of December. So Thanksgiving, I was eating my Thanksgiving dinner and studying. Like my family would be I'm like, yeah, guys, I'm here. It's good, and I'd be studying for my
Oh
finals.
man.
This is a horrible horror movie sequel.
Hey,
Just
as long as you got that coquito, you'll be fine.
that's 3 months of waiting to find out if you pass or fail. I'd rather just die.
So you got to do the bar exam, and then you got to do your own law school finals because the semester's about to end right after.
Yeah, I mean during law
Right.
school, right? You're getting which during law school you get one exam for the
Okay.
semester. Um,
Yeah, like
and
journalism.
yeah, yeah. So like everything's riding on that, and then there's a curve,
Hmm.
right? So like a certain, that's why I would get that C because certain amount of people got to get the B's, and then like they'll kick you over, and you'll get a C, whatever. And then the bar exam comes at the very end. Once you're done with law school, graduate, all of that. A lot of there's some people that don't even take the bar exam. You know, they just wait. They go into a different career. Some people that don't pass that first time, got to take it another time, maybe 2 or 3 times until you pass. So there's all different paths for
Is there a
people.
certain amount of times you can take the bar exam?
I don't think there's a limit. Famously, JFK Jr. took it 7
Damn.
times.
Oh wow.
He couldn't
Wow.
pass it.
Okay, so
You have to pay for it all the time, right?
Huh?
You have to pay to take the bar exam, like its actual cost.
Yes.
I forget.
It's the registration fee, and then even the prep that I was talking about, the class I took in the summer, I had to pay for that separately too. That's a couple $1,000s for the prep course.
oh,
I was gonna
Lord.
say, like, I'm pretty sure to take the exam is like at least $1,000 or more, actually.
Oh,
Yeah.
Lord. Oh. But yeah, I see why everybody hopes to pass it the first time. I don't know
I
if
was
I
gonna
got
say
$1,000 to pay for this.
Actually,
they're gonna need that lawyer money.
So after you've passed the bar exam, you got your bar license, and you're ready to go. You already had an internship at a law firm, so you're ready to go. You hit the ground running. How quickly did you climb the ranks at your law firm, and what law firm was this?
So I actually worked with a criminal defense attorney in the Bronx, Murray
Oh,
Richmond.
I know that
He
name.
has represented a lot of, yeah, he's
that's
represented
not
a lot
good.
of artists.
Anytime a brother goes like, "Oh, I know that defense attorney," I'm like, "That's not what I want to hear from you."
Yeah. Yeah, but I was interning with him, and Murray, they know him as "Don't Worry, Murray."
Jesus Christ!
Hey, you gotta have a
So
slogan.
I got to work on a lot of cool cases. He has, if you look him up, he has some great former clients. But I basically worked with him about 3.5 years. Just criminal defense. So that's, private client. Basically, we were private defense attorneys, mostly in the Bronx criminal court. And after that time with him, I decided I want to go off on my own because I wanted to learn another area. I wanted to learn family law because I saw there weren't a lot of family attorneys in the Bronx that spoke Spanish and that could like really represent the community. So I went off on my own and I opened up my own practice, which is like, pretty scary. And then I had my own office for almost 7 years.
Interesting.
Wow.
Interesting.
Nice.
What's the name of your practice right now?
It was Camilo Law Firm, real simple. It was just me. I was a solo practitioner. So it was great because you're your own boss. So I made my own schedule, it was a business. You had to manage. Like, however, if I got more clients, I made more money, and I had low overhead costs because it was just me. I was in the Bronx and I started like in the back of a bail bond office, like just one little room. So I kind of just started small, I answered my own phones and then you're on call every day, all day, like clients will call on the weekend. It was just, you were always on. And I always would think like, man, my clients always knew when I was away on vacation. Like without, I would be landing in PR, right? And a client from 3 years ago would be calling me like, I just had a question about that case. If you could give me information, I'm like, oh, now you call me? So it was, it was very interesting. And I feel like it was very important work to do family court stuff, which is what I focused on. But then I moved on, and then I got into election law, working at the Board of Elections.
So real quick,
Hold
go
on, I
ahead,
have one
go ahead,
question.
Jeremy. I'm sorry.
How was it coming up with your own law firm? Like how did you build up clientele? How did you advertise yourself?
Great, yeah. I planned for it. I'm a planner, so I was working for another attorney and thinking about where will I have an office and what clients can I bring in. And I actually had a few people that wanted me to be their attorney while I still had my other job. So I was kind of telling them to wait. So I had really built up my clients through making connections. We have bar associations, which basically they're a group of attorneys, and we do a lot of mentoring for young attorneys. We do a lot of networking. That's being a lawyer, you have to be good at networking. You have to put yourself out there. The more people you meet, the more people know, oh, Miguelina does family law in the Bronx, and you will be thought of when there's a case. So that was a bulk of it. Building up my name and then preparing. Like I actually went, and it's funny because I'll talk to other people that are like going off. There's different ways to do it. Like you could just say tomorrow, I'm gonna open my own office, whatever. I'm gonna just find a place. I found a place and I planned for that location. I had savings, like I saved up, and I saved up like 6 months of rent.
Ooh.
And I said to myself, like, I'm gonna go out on my own.
She said 6 months.
Hey, that's planning. She's
That's
a
some,
planner.
that's some planning for your ass. That's right.
That's a big risk, right? I'm leaving a paycheck.
Yeah.
I'm going off on my own. So I said, if not one person walks into my office, I can at least pay this rent for 6 months.
Yeah.
Let me try this. And I ended up being okay for 7 years. I was on my own, and then I closed the office because I made a move. I stayed. And just continue to do that.
Okay.
I got a question. I know first of all, you and Dora are very close. You're best friends, right? I know she's like probably a little sister to you. I know that she recently just opened up her own firm as well. Did like what kind of pointers and advice or mentorship did you give her to open her own firm? And do you constantly give her, do you offer that mentorship role on a day-to-day basis? Is it semi basis? Like how often, like what's the communication like between you two? Because I know that she's probably going through the same things that you were going through, wondering the same things, have the same ideas, the same plans. So can you just break down a little bit about how you mentor her too?
My brother.
What?
You talk too much
I'm
sometimes.
I'm asking a question.
We're getting to know each other, Brother
Thank you.
Tay.
Tell
Like,
him.
This is
wait,
crazy.
Tell him. Please tell him.
You asked the question and gave 17 examples. I was like, Jesus.
So part of being an attorney, networking, it's also mentoring, giving, paying it forward, right? Like a lot of people help me, so I'm always happy to help people, especially friends and good friends of mine. So with Dora, who just took that big leap recently, and it's great, she's actually going to do a little bit of family law. So that's my expertise. I know that area. So I definitely am here for her when she wants to talk through a case. And that's something I experienced. Like anytime I had a case, I would call up a friend, like, what would you do? What do you think? And something I told Dora to think about, and I would tell any attorney who's saying, I have a job, but I'm going to go off on my own. I would say, okay, while you're at that job, prepare. There are forms, there are basic things that you will need that you should start gathering before you venture off. So with someone like a friend like Dora, I've given her some templates, like this is what your motion should look like. This is what your letters should look like. These are some resource numbers to know. And she, has done it the right way. She built up a great website. You have to put money into putting your name out there, advertising. And she also has done the work of, being in bar associations, putting her name out there. So guess what? People are calling her now. Like, they need a divorce attorney or immigration attorney. She has a couple areas that she specializes in. So I think it boils down to those two things: preparing yourself as much as you can, and then having your name recognition and networking.
I know you said bar associations a few times. So like, I want to ask how many are you part of a bar? You're still part of a bar association, and how many different bar associations do we normally like see?
There are a lot. There are national organizations that are connected in all the different states. And the city, New York City, is very active. We have a lot of local ones. And basically, a bar association will just define itself by its membership. So, like the Dominican Bar Association is one that Dora and I worked with closely. And it's mostly attorneys that are of Dominican descent, Dominican American attorneys will join that. There's the Metropolitan Black Bar Association, which is a huge, amazing organization in the city that we collaborate a lot with. Puerto Rican Bar Association, so there's like a lot of different groups that have some root in, in their culture, ethnicity, whatever it is. And I can't tell you an exact number, but there's definitely great examples. And I will say in the city, we're very lucky. We have such a diverse community that we have a lot of these interests. When you go to like upstate New York, because I've done state bar associations, when you go upstate, they don't have as much diversity. They don't have as much networking. It's just like a whole different way of practicing. But I've definitely been involved. Dominican Bar, there's the Bronx Women's Bar. I was former president there. And then national bars, there's like the Hispanic National Bar Association that I'm a part of. So all these groups kind of just feed resources to attorneys and give us an excuse to hang out.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. So, you mentioned once you were done with your own practice, you moved on to election boards. What prompted that decision to make that career move?
Yeah, so I actually was able to still have my practice and do a part-time thing. I was a commissioner at the Board of Elections. So the City Board of Elections, we have the 5 boroughs. Each borough, Bronx, New York, Queens, they each have 2 commissioners, a Democratic commissioner and a Republican commissioner. Everything is bipartisan at the Board of Elections. So I was appointed to be Democratic commissioner representing the Bronx. And it was very cool because I got to oversee every single election. I got to make decisions, on behalf of the Bronx. And that then led me to know all the work or get to know the work that the City Board of Elections does. And then I actually became associate counsel. I worked as an attorney at the Board of Elections full time. So that's when I closed my practice, left my practice, and then went full time to work at the board.
Okay.
Sorry, I laughed. I thought of someone listening to this. You were like, I made the decisions on behalf of the Bronx. I thought someone was like, that was you who did that. How dare you?
Oh, we get blamed a lot. Like, when things go wrong, I mean, we are the agency that is overseeing every election. So if there's long lines, if it rains and your ballot got wet, like all these things, you blame the Board of Elections.
Got you.
Oh.
Now I know who to come to.
Oh no!
Listen. I get
I get
blamed
a lot
for
of emails.
I get blamed for every NTA thing that happens.
All right, I'm gonna be you.
So
Hold on. Don't put that on me and Jay. We don't blame you.
No, not you.
He's not even here.
Not these two.
And you're upset.
Not these two, but all my other friends and family members. When things go wrong on the train, they look at me like, "This is your fault." I'm like, I'm not even there. So I know the feel. How was what was the experience like working for the Board of Elections? Like, how was it better than? I won't say better. Yeah, like, how would you compare and contrast owning your own practice versus sitting on the board?
It definitely had different types of perks. I mean, for me, at the most basic level, it was just an opportunity to learn about such an important area of our life, right? Voting, the process of elections. Like growing up, I used to think there was one election every 4 years for president. That's it, right? But no, there are elections all the time, and our staff, we have offices in every borough, and then we have a general office in Manhattan for the city. There are hundreds of people that are tinkering with the scanners, with the equipment, keeping the database of voters, making sure that we have access electronically. Like now there's so many things you can do online. Like you could check the status of your registration, you could check the status of your absentee ballot, you see results right away online. Like there is a whole operation that is always ongoing. So I loved being able to see up close every facet of that process. And like one of the last things I got to do, which I thought was amazing, I got to go to our warehouse in Brooklyn where we store records, old voting records from like the early 1900s. So the books that people used to sign in to be able to go vote, we have those, and actually people are able to request like their family voting history. So I was going there to recover records to, produce some reports. But to get to see that, I think that's such an important part of history. And people have fought for the right to vote. People are still fighting for the right to vote. So I just felt like it was, this work that is at the core of our democracy that I was like a little small piece of it.
It sounds like a lot of
Appreciate
work.
it. Yeah,
It sounds like a
you
lot of
learn very.
legwork.
So you learn very quickly. Like after you get past like the presidential election, there's like there's the Senate elections, there's the House elections, then there's elections for rules and laws. It's a lot.
Yeah, and we have a lot of local offices, right? Local races. So like we know next week it's the election for governor, lieutenant governor, U.S. Senate. We have local state Senate, assembly members, judges, attorney general, right? So those are big positions that are on the ballot for next Tuesday. And guess what? In a year, we're going to be voting again for city council. So we have local representatives in the city. We're also going to be voting for district attorney. So it's almost like never ending. We always have elections, and those are things that like are dependent on the term, right? Like a state senator is a 2-year term, so they have to run every 2 years. And besides those set terms that we know of, if something happens, if your assembly member, something happens to them and they have to be replaced, then you get a special election where we have to fill that
Right.
position. And that's why I give so much credit to our staff, our people at the Board of Elections, because they are constantly, having to
Get ready.
deal with putting on elections. And now it's not just election day; we have early voting,
Uh,
so we have 9 days available to our voters to come vote before election day, and that takes finding locations, getting the equipment there, getting the staff there, our poll workers. Who thank you to our poll workers because that's all volunteers
uh,
that come in and do that civic duty. So a lot goes into elections.
Yeah, I could see that it's a lot of legwork because this my elementary school behind my house, it's a voting location. And every November I see the amount of work that actually gets goes into it with the voting machines and the hiring of the staff and everything in between. I can see how much work it is. Um Speaking of Senate races, you yourself ran for Senate, right? Can you tell us a little bit
That's
about
right.
that race and what that experience was like?
Yes. So we went through a very interesting year where we had redistricting. So I don't know if you guys spoke about this before on a show, but in a nutshell, we have a census every 10
Mhm.
years, and then that changes the maps of our
Right.
districts
Yes.
for Senate, Assembly, even City Council. They're going through that now.
uh,
So I ran initially because a senator, the sitting senator for where I live, left. She said she was going to run for something else. So I said, okay, I'm running for her seat. Then that was supposed to be a June primary, June 2022 that just passed. But because redistricting, there was a lawsuit, a fight to change the maps. Then they had to change the maps for Senate, and it pushed the election date to August 23rd.
uh,
So I ended up campaigning for office for a total of 7 months. Like from February to August, I was campaigning, trying to run for the seat. And it was quite an experience. It was my first time running, so I was a first time candidate. I had some knowledge of the political process, having worked in elections and being an attorney, being involved with the county party. So it was something that I definitely think was like a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I felt like I would run for office at some point. I just wasn't sure when. So I got the opportunity. I said yes right away to doing it and running. And I lost. I lost by about 500 votes.
Mm.
So very, very
Yeah.
close. It was like one of the closest races in the city. And for it to be a new candidate, against someone. I Because of the change of the lines, I ended up having to go against a sitting elected who has been in office for 10
Oh
years.
wow.
So he had represented parts of this new district for 10 years, had name recognition,
Oh yeah.
and was able to pull through it.
All I'm just hearing is next year. That's all I got. That's all next time. That's all I heard from that.
Yeah, that's not off the table. You never know. There's always that opportunity to try again.
So you
So we'll
shaking in your
see.
boots, homie. I'm coming for that seat. You ain't gonna stop me.
So was it
Got one this time.
so so it was obviously a great experience for you, and you clearly ready to geared up and ready to go again. So I know that you have, as actually the entire country has their eyes coming up to this coming midterm election this coming Tuesday. Um, some of the key issues that that voters are concerned about. Jeremy, I know that you pulled up a list of things. Can you just run down that list real fast for us?
You should have told me to keep it up because I did not have it ready.
My bad,
Um,
Jerry.
one of the main issues that I was seeing was that the economy was one of the important issues that a lot of people want to talk about. So, how do you feel about it, and how do you think voters should feel about it?
Yeah. It's definitely an important issue. We are living at with living costs at an all-time high. So gas prices, mortgage rates. I always think back to my family who came here in the 80s and somehow managed to provide us with everything. Like my parents are not educated. They became business owners, and they were able to send me to college, get a home, like people would make it. And I want New York to still be that place, or the country, United States, to still be that place where you can make it. And for some, there's that feeling like it's just unattainable. Even for um, professionals, people that have dedicated time to going to school, they have student debt. They can't afford a rent of $2,500 for a studio or whatever crazy it is. So definitely
Oh, I'm sorry. No, once you said 2,500 for a studio, it's too much.
Oh,
Huh?
is that what you pay?
No, not even like okay, I haven't found the right place yet, but just looking is putting a dent in my pocket sometimes. It's like, how is people supposed to afford this kind, even with a quote elevated salary? You know what I mean? Like, it's the rent is too damn high. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
roommates.
it's a huge concern. And we are also coming out of pandemic,
Yes.
right,
Yep.
for 3 years or so. And that's also putting a twist in this idea of economic recovery. And what we're experiencing is that people do want a hybrid work style. They don't want to commute to work. They need a higher salary in terms of numbers because they're thinking of those costs that they have. So it's a really difficult time, and people feel like they want those electeds to be in the seat. Those people that are going to fight for them and are going to consider like the average American, the person that has to go to work and take their kids to school and feed their family. Like they want to feel like that person representing them understands those difficulties and is actually going to do something about it. I I'm a daughter of a small business owner. I worked my way up. My family worked very hard, and we've gotten to a place where we keep working hard, and luckily we can provide for our families. But it's not easy. It's really tough. So people are looking at that issue amongst other issues.
Actually, I have one because I thought about this as since this is going on in not really our state, but in other southern states, and you being the attorney for for elections. How do you feel about like the voting things that are going on? Like some of the voters are struggling to even get a chance to vote due to some of the tactics that have been used by certain people.
Voter
How do you
suppression.
feel
Yeah,
about those?
it is incredible to understand for me, it's this. Like, I don't understand how we don't have higher voter turnouts, how people don't come out to vote when there are areas of the country that they are literally fighting. They're risking their safety to go vote. There were people in Arizona showing up with guns, manning ballot boxes,
Mhm.
and trying to threaten people to stay away, right? I have friends that are going to Georgia to do election protection because it is a reality. Like, people will be forced and threatened to try not to go vote. They'll be given wrong information. Times will be cut off. Like, just all these things happen. And we in New York are in a bubble where we're
Absolutely.
begging people to come vote and they don't.
Mhm.
Why do you think that?
So the voter
Sorry, go ahead, continue. I'm sorry, sis.
it's the voter turnout is just, it's unbelievable. And I think the question was going to be, why do you think that
Hmm.
is? It's voting fatigue, I think. So many elections. Like, I saw it. People voted in a June primary, and then I'm still knocking on their door. Come vote again in August. They're like, we just voted,
Mhm.
you know? Well, having to understand all these legal processes that are making them go through multiple elections is very difficult. And already for an average person, that's like, okay, does my vote even count? Like, does it really matter? Like, is it going to be all the same thing?
Hmm.
People are fed up. So voting fatigue definitely is a problem. And I'm trying to figure out still that gap, because we've done a lot of great work. In New York, you can be pre-registered to vote. So if you're 16 or 17 years old, you can pre-register. You can say, yes, put me on that list. So when I turn 18, I want to be able to go vote, right?
Hmm.
There's so much excitement around that idea. I can pre-register. We go to schools, we register 100 kids in 30 minutes. Everybody's signing up. Yeah, it's great. 2 years later, is there going to be that same excitement? Like, it's still that missing piece. Like, when it comes to the reality, like, yes, you can vote. You have everything you need. You have the information. You have the time, but people don't do it. People don't go. People don't feel that sense of urgency or how important it is to lend their voice. And one vote makes a difference. So I definitely try to dedicate time to that. I talk to young people about the importance of voting, and I try to frame it in a way of understand how much is at risk and how quickly things can turn. Like, Jay, you told me to look up like some key races where it is narrow, thin, razor thin margin of difference between candidates. And we are talking about Democrat or Republican, right? It's a two-party system. We see that in Arizona. That's where they were showing up with guns, threatening people to come vote. We see that in Georgia, where we see Governor Stacey Abrams trying to run for governor.
Yep.
How much she has done through grassroots movement to try to mobilize people. Nevada, Pennsylvania, like, these are states where they could be flipped, and we will see a difference in our majority in Congress. And these are the people that are determining reproductive rights, you know, economic assistance. They're dealing too with migrants, immigration crisis in this country. What are we going to do about those issues? So what does it take, for people to really understand what's at risk? Um, our country has gone through many battles and many fights. Um, and maybe it does take some time, like, seeing how bad it could be, for people to realize the importance of their voice. So we shall see. I voted already. I cast my vote early for Tuesday. I'm going to be out Tuesday on election day, mobilizing and trying to get people to come in. It takes 2 minutes, come in and vote. And that's the important thing. Come out and vote.
What do you feel that the sensationalism of the presidential election, does it play a factor into people not really taking a look at the other elections that go on throughout the years? Because one thing I've noticed is basically I've the lack of advertisement for these elections, whereas with the presidential one you see it everywhere. Like, I don't have cable, so I don't really see commercials and stuff like that, but I will see it on social media, I will see it on news websites, and I can't get away from it at some points. But
Even
with
in New York
this,
City, you'll see it on. You can
on
see it on like public
billboards,
transportation.
yeah, you'll see it everywhere. Whereas with the more local elections, it doesn't really seem like they put that much effort into it. Do you think that plays a factor?
Yeah. Um, I think I'll start by saying there is a different feeling for presidential election, right? Like the voter turnout is just going to be higher.
Mm-hmm.
People do come out more frequently and not by much. Like a president can be elected with like 30% of the vote, as opposed to our local elections where the winner usually has like 10% of the electorate,
Mm.
right? So, like in my district, for example, there's about 100,000 registered voters in the Senate district. Guess how many votes the winner got? He got 5,200 votes.
Wow.
In 100,000 registered in the electorate, 5,000 people came out and voted for him.
Wow.
And 5,000 people voted for me too, but it was 500 less than him, right? So we both pushed out similar number of people to come out and vote in an August election. So there's definitely a difference between a presidential election and any other.
Mm-hmm.
There's just like that, there's going to be a bigger push for the presidential. And then as to your comment about the effort,
Well, I didn't mean that like
there's
in a negative way. I just meant like there's a different level of push for those elections
yeah,
versus the locals.
yeah. So it's a money thing, right? Like candidates have to raise money. Like I, as a candidate, actually dreaded that. Like that was my biggest, like the most daunting part of it.
Mm.
I had to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars to go into mail, digital ads, commercials, radio ads, and you put money into that. It is an insane amount of money, actually, when you look at the numbers, how much money goes into elections. But what I want to say is it's frustrating still because even with all the money that goes out and candidates pushing out that message, you will still have people that said, I didn't know there was an election going on. I missed it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
Wow.
so then how do you get, it's like, it's called touches. Like you want to touch people in different ways. So like I would have ads on Instagram, Facebook. I would do the mail. I would knock on your door. I will like be on the street corner waving like, please come vote. And some people would still say, I didn't know it was an election. So it's like at that point you just have to focus in on who are the people that usually vote. There are things. There's some. It's called a prime voter, someone that consistently votes in every single election, even the local elections.
Uh,
If you voted in the last 3 elections, you're a prime voter. I'm knocking on your door because you care. You come out and vote, and that's all we can do at the end of the day, because it is just difficult to get not only the message, but rely on that person to say, okay, yes, I'm gonna make a plan. That whole thing, make a plan and go vote. Like, who's gonna actually make that plan, set aside time, and go vote? You know.
Okay.
as a side note, I actually get those messages all the time because my family makes me vote in every election that comes up. So I get text messages and everything and Instagram messages. They're like, "It's like, hey, come vote for this." And I'm like, "Can I do it tomorrow?"
So I would love to take the chance. Like, you are three guys in New York. You're educated, conscious about what's going on in the world around you.
Yeah.
What more can be done to get younger people or get people just in general motivated to come out and vote?
Well, I will say that, you know, I think one of the reasons, if we go back to voter frustration or voter fatigue that you mentioned, I feel like one of the reasons why the voter turnout is so low, especially among our demographic, African American men, even sometimes Latino men, a lot of the times we feel that politicians don't have the best interests of our demographic. And so it leads us to vote more voter registration and really dismissal. You know what I mean? Sometimes like, oh, we don't care. These politicians don't care about us. So what do you suggest would be the way to get uh people like us, people like me and Brother Tay, me and producer Jay, to turn us around, get that out of that mindset of our leaders don't even care about us. Our elected officials don't mean anything. They don't care about us. What to that you say, and also what do you say will get us to change that mind?
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it does come to you having a connection with that person or the person's story. So, with me as a new candidate, for example, a lot of people connected to me being the daughter of a bodega owner, the immigrant story, the first to go to college. Like, people will hear that story, not even have met me, but the story like it resonated with them, right? So, I think it's messaging, like, does that candidate have a message you could relate to? And then if it's actually someone from the community, or let's say a sitting elected that's running for reelection, then you want that person to be present. You don't want them to just come around during election time. Like, you want to be like, oh yeah, Miguelina's running again. Yeah, I saw her giving away food the other day, or I saw her at a school, and like you want them to actually be felt, right, in the area that they're running in. And you'll hear that actually with a few elections where it's someone like comes out of nowhere and you're like, who's that? Like, I've never seen them. I don't know them. People want to feel like they care. Like, that is someone who's been around, who's not just here for the ego, for the title of whatever the position is. So I think it has to just be like that connection somehow. And what we've been kind of talking about is the messaging. We're in a tech world, we're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, like, and TikTok actually doesn't allow political campaigning. I think if they did, people would get messaging much
Yeah,
quicker, because
absolutely.
I spent a good amount of time on TikTok, looking at like food videos and dance videos and stuff. It's like political messaging, but that is something that hasn't happened. So
Actually, I can. Actually, an idea I thought of to answer your question. I think the idea, because we know that everyone knows that this Tuesday coming up is election day. I think it's better to have more than one election day on the calendar that's like celebrated like this. Like, everyone knows, like,
mm,
oh, election day is next Tuesday. It's the Tuesday coming up. I think it's a sense, if you want people like to show up to vote more, you'll be like, oh, like, there's election day in November. Oh, don't forget there's election day in April too. That's April 10th, where like those elections will be on there. I think it's the idea, and to brother Jay's point, that a lot of people will look at that and be like, oh, like it's fatiguing thing, and people don't care about that. But a lot of people who will look at it and be like, oh, okay. I was like, all right, we have election day on this Tuesday. And then a lot of parents and a lot of people will be like, oh, there's election day on the 10th, because a lot of people will be like, oh, my kids don't go to school that day. So in their brain, they're like, oh, I got to vote that day. And they'll probably look up more stuff coming up. That's how I think you get more turnout for
that's a really good idea. I'm gonna write that down because I'm
There you go.
I think
gonna call
I think
somebody
that's more
to
of a
suggest that.
logistical thing though, no? Because um as we know, as well, as Miguelina has laid out for us, campaigning is a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of work. You have to register the campaign, you have to get nominated and things such as that sort, right? So it takes a lot of time and prepping to do the whatchamacallit, to do the
that.
campaigning the year, and then it culminates with election day. I think that's why they put it so close to the end of the year, because it's a culmination of everything that's been happening before that. But even if you put in like April, they people will be campaigning around the clock, around the calendar.
No, but but that's what I'm saying is that, dude. Remember, she said that everyone voted, like everyone had a presidential election, and then like a month later, she was like, "Hey, come vote again for this." Like, you see, like, I think as a culmination, I think it's better to have separate days and have it be marked on the calendar, and also just to have that mark. And as the nominations, as it takes time for this process, having some of those elections closer to the other days. So, like, if there's an election for the judge, the district attorney, and the local senators, those nominations are done in December, and they have till May or April to get their nomination out, and then that's the election day part two, and then you have election day that you always do in November that everyone does, like presidential, Senate, governor, things like that. I think it's better that way, Because if you have a way that it's more recognizable, it's more easier. Trust me, as someone who had to do clicks and had to do headlines for newspapers, as soon as anything is recognizable as a day, people will come to it all the time.
Yeah.
That's an experience
Yeah.
talking. I respect it. I respect it.
I
Producer
have to
J.
make things pretty.
Yeah.
Producer J. Were there more? Were there more topics on that list of
I
voter
mean,
concerns?
Abortion
yes.
rights,
Yeah, I
as
was
she
just gonna
mentioned.
say she touched upon it a little bit about abortion rights and the whole Roe v. Wade situation that we had an episode about before. What are
We
your
did. I want to hear it.
what's that?
I'm gonna go hear it. I'm gonna go look back and hear
Oh,
it.
good. You can watch me fight.
Yeah. So that episode that was the episode I originally wanted Dora on because we wanted a legal perspective and a medical perspective. I wanted to ask one of my nurse friends who to come on the show alongside Dora and kind of bounce off of us because we didn't want it to be just a male conversation with that issue.
Yeah.
So I wanted her on that, but she wasn't available. I wasn't available, so it just didn't work out. But we did touch on it just very basically. So can you go into this issue a little bit more for us here and give us the female perspective of the issue in regards to this coming election? Like, what is at stake in terms of reproductive rights on Tuesday?
Especially in states like Georgia and Arizona and
Right,
Nevada too.
right.
Yeah. So it's life or death, right? For women that are, and maybe it's not a full realization yet that when there's a ban on reproductive access, a lot of times we're not even talking about a ban against abortion. It's against contraceptives.
Yes.
It's against Plan B. It's like all these things that have been normalized that for 50 years, we've had we've had protection over it on a federal level, that it's going to go away, one day to another. And it's a singular issue that's very powerful. Like, I know a lot of Democrats that will side on that issue if they are pro life, right? Republicans that talk about that's a singular issue they care about. So it's still that big motivating factor. I think the idea of states that are blue, like New York, the idea was that because this is such an important issue, we would have more female voter turnout,
Mhm.
right? Because we care about protecting that right. And New York has codified that right and has protected it. And we want to go a step beyond and actually provide, economic support, access to everything that's related to reproductive rights. But in the country, right, those states that are battling and are having a choice between a representative that will actually put a ban, will stop that right, will then lead to women even being prosecuted if they try to travel. There's like certain states that are talking about like, we're even going to come after you if you try to travel out of state to get an abortion. And we're going to penalize the doctor. I think it was,
Oh,
um, no, there was a,
Was
what
it
I'm
Ohio?
blanking on the state.
I don't.
There was telehealth. There's something now with COVID. Telehealth became
Mhm.
very
Mhm.
important.
Mhm.
A
Mm,
doctor could prescribe you
Mhm.
online medication, right,
mm,
to deal with a situation. So if a doctor in like Oregon was like telling you, yes, go get your prescription to have that issue resolved, right, and seek to access the medical care because it is medical care, seek the medical care you need. If that person, that woman, was in a state that didn't allow it, then that's a conflict for that doctor whose practice is to take care of their patient.
Mhm.
Um, so there are just so many implications as to what this really is going to lead to. And I think it's interesting that in states, even like Kansas, right, where in general people are feeling like, oh, we're pro life, uh, we don't care if Roe v. Wade was overturned. Well, they put that on a referenda, on a ballot. They asked the voters, do you want abortion to be banned? No, they don't. I think if you get to asking the people directly, forget about politics, forget about what the representatives are talking about. When people have a chance to actually vote on a ballot, do you think we should ban abortion access? For the most part, I think it's like 70% of the country says no, we don't want to ban abortion. We know how much bigger a risk, because the automatic thought is women are going to die because they're going to find a way to do it anyway. So then they're going to go a different route. There was this awful movie that I saw in high school called If These Walls Can Talk. I don't think
He brought
I've
that
seen
up.
it. I brought it. See, that was so when we talked about the episode. I mentioned a movie that I saw. I couldn't remember the name, but I think I saw. I think that's the name of it. It was horrible. It was horrifying.
Yeah. Cher was in it. Cher was like the abortion doctor. Do you
I
remember?
think so. The one that he went to her house, and in the yeah, that scene. Yeah, it terrified me. Yeah, it terrified me.
He brought it up to me, and as a this not a thing. I am not a movie person, but I
Well,
have seen just no. I definitely have seen clips in other movies and other shows of just like what it was like before abortion had like these sort of things where people had to go like in like houses or behind alleys or behind houses to get this stuff done, and just the idea of them having it is banned. People, like I said, people are always going to find a way to have an idea to go back to go back. I guess since go back in time to do that, is not healthy in a way.
Yeah, like
And as any person would not want that. No one wants to see that happen at all.
the mantra.
And I
Oh,
think
go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, sorry. No, we get so caught up in this theory that like if we allow this right, then somehow we are personally advocate. Like, I am pro-choice. I believe in a woman's right to choose. That doesn't mean I'm gonna have to get an abortion myself. Like, I have my own separate, but I want that right to be protected. Because who knows if there ever would be a situation that I would need it, because there are medical circumstances that can lead to needing an abortion. Take away like just a personal choice that you get pregnant, whatever happens, and like there could be some discussion like if it's immoral or not. But like if it's a health decision, a need, I want that choice. And people get so attached to somebody else's ability. Like, why should I be controlling another woman's right to do that, and then to have men making these decisions? Is just incredible. And it just sets us back. We're just going backwards, back in time.
What I was gonna say is like what the line is that you can't ban abortion. You can only ban safe abortions.
Right.
Yeah,
There
sounds
you
about
go.
right. It's to me, it's almost
Checkmate.
Huh? I'm
It's
sorry
like
about to say.
checkmate. That line's a banner. Checkmate. Put it
Yeah,
in the bar.
No,
yeah.
that's what people say.
It's gonna go in the description when I type it out. It's not. I'm just letting you know.
So the states that have officially, well, if they have officially banned abortions, are those states do they have seats that are up for election this coming Tuesday?
Yeah, so I actually had pulled that up because I know you asked me.
I think as a personal thing, because I think there's like two. I think a few in Georgia, mostly because like the Daily Show and Trevor Noah is there in Atlanta, and they're also doing some stuff about it as well.
Mhm.
But also
Yeah.
just as a thing that I think I read about as well.
Yeah, I could tell you that there. So remember how I said people have a right, or having the ability to vote on a ballot, whether they want to protect that right or not. So there are measures to protect abortion. California, Michigan, and Vermont, they're going to have that on the ballot. When they go vote for their representatives, there's going to be a question: do you believe in protecting this reproductive liberty, right? This access to health care? And people will get to vote. And I'm sure we're going to see the outcome of those ballot measures being like overwhelmingly supported.
Most likely.
Most likely. In the opposite, yeah, and opposite, there's measures to restrict the access. So Kentucky, for example, has an amendment where they want to say that they're not you don't have a right to abortion, and they're not going to fund abortion. It's illegal in Kentucky to have an abortion, but this measure is going to make it part of the law, right? If it's voted in, and I would be interested to see if that's not not supported, right? Like, so people in Kentucky can get to vote on it, and if it's the general trend of the country who believe in protecting that right, hopefully that measure doesn't pass. Hopefully it doesn't get enough votes. And that would be great for them to see that.
Talk an interesting place. There's a lot of southern states that always get me confused. Not confused, like they're always surprising and depending on the result. Louisiana is definitely a good one as well. That normally that can flip and flop a lot when it comes to a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to have contested races, right? It's important to have people wanting to involve themselves in the political process, run for office. We have a lot of sitting electeds that have been there for decades, and that's good in a way. They have the institutional knowledge. As long as they are still, with an ear to constituents or communities, that's fine. But we also want to see these new people come in, because times change, and that's actually a problem with the Supreme Court, having lifetime appointments. We had former President Trump being able to appoint, so many representatives to the court. They're there for the rest of their life, you know. Um,
Something I want to ask you
it's
about that. That just sparked a question in my mind. Do you
Jesus
think,
Christ.
honestly, no, seriously, do you think that it's right for Supreme Court justices to basically serve until they, until they die or until they resign on their own, or should it be like an elected position where they serve a term, and if the president wants to appoint them again, they have to reapply for, re-election or whatever, reappointment or whatever have you? Because I think it's ridiculous that this career Supreme Court justices where they serve for decades. You know what I mean? It's mind boggling to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of history of the Supreme Court. It's our highest court, and I think the lifetime appointments came with the idea of keeping like a
Mm-hmm.
stability, of the judges, and being proportional. Ideally, probably to have like a diverse makeup of liberal and conservative. But we see that that's not always going to be the case. So I am not for, continuing these lifetime appointments where we have such a skewed representation. Now we have 6 conservative judges and 3 liberal. We're always going to have that type of opinion coming out where it is on more conservative side, and that's not representative of the entire
Right.
country. If we somehow mandate that balance, it's always going to be 5-5, and the tiebreaker, somewhere else. Well, the tiebreaker is the vice
Mm-hmm.
president. Not the vice president. I'm sorry, that was in Congress. But like, if there was a tiebreaker kind of structure, then that makes sense. Lifetime appointment, right? Um, in every other position, as you said, there's certain requirements to always run for reelection, and I think that is important to make sure that we still are representative of.
Jeremy, last issue. Well, I think there was one more of the top three.
The last important issue was immigration, which
Mm.
is mostly toward the southern states where it's a main issue there. What are your feelings towards that?
Yeah, I mean, it's the migrant crisis, and we are a country of immigrants, and this is a country where people have come to build better lives for their families, and there's been pathways, for them. And I think it's problematic what we're seeing happening, where they're being used. These people are being used um, as a political pawns, right? Because they're being sent to places like here in New York to kind of prove a point. And funny enough, those people are actually doing better because they're able to get resources. Um, So it's a tough issue that we need to have a better approach. Like if we're going to have the open borders and we're not going to have any type of structure to get them into the right place and have the right resources, then it's a free for all is no good either. But it is a key issue that people are always concerned about. And it's funny, I was watching some other debate and they asked some candidate for a local race about it. And it was something about like, well, my family came, but they did it the right way. And the families that are coming now are not doing it the right way. And it's like, yeah, but there's always been like a faulty immigration system where people have come and they haven't followed every single bullet point that you're supposed to follow, and they make it. And because they're from certain countries, it's okay. When they're from other countries, it's not okay.
Mhm.
So it's just not right we don't want America to become that place where like you're only accepted if you're from this list. So big issue to consider when you're thinking of those candidates that will represent you and how they stand on that issue.
It's one of those things where like there should be a system in place for those who aren't doing it the right way to get on the right path to do it the right way.
Isn't that what DACA was for? Or
Mm.
am I mixing them up?
Well, DACA wasn't upheld by the Supreme Court. They didn't allow that as a permanent solution. And that was kind of written in as a possibility, for um, young people that are seeking education and having access to education here. And that would be a pathway for them and then ultimately for their
Hmm.
families. So it's like, that's a good point. Even when they try to do it the right way, it's still being blocked
Yeah.
by those that just don't want them here. Um, what else was I going Yeah, it's just, it's a big problem. That I always thought about doing immigration law, and I always felt like, am I really going to help people though? Because it's such a convoluted system.
Uh,
Um, there are countries that are really struggling, like Venezuela now has a very fast process that if you are a citizen of Venezuela, you can come here like almost
Hmm.
automatically because they're
So
going through such
yeah,
turmoil. Yeah.
yeah, Venezuela's a mess right now.
they got their own issues right now.
Yeah, so it's just like
Actually, if you ever, as a heads up, if you ever want to learn more about Venezuela, there is a. You ever heard the show last week? Last week tonight, there's a good
Yeah.
30-minute
Ah,
segment about all of Venezuela's history and their
okay.
issues.
Wow.
Last week tonight helps us keeps me very informed. They actually did something about bail reform today.
oh wow.
They did. Oh,
That, you talking about the that show with the British guy, right? I forget his name.
John Oliver.
Yes, John
John Oliver,
Oliver.
that a lot of people like to, especially a lot of conservatives like to make fun of.
Yeah, he's actually pretty good at his job. He makes the show interesting. But I'll definitely
He's
check
very
it out.
oh definitely. I've been watching him since like the first season came out. I haven't missed one yet.
So in closing, because I know it's getting pretty late. In closing, Miguelina, we appreciate you for coming on. And is there anything
Yes.
that you want to say uh as a closing remark, and you put a final stamp on tonight?
Any jokes you want to make fun of us,
Yeah, make
it's
fun of us
fine.
if you have to.
well, no, I want to thank you guys for the opportunity to come on and chat. And I think at the end of the day, we were really here to highlight next Tuesday, November 8th, General Election Day. And it is very important to go out and vote. And what I would say as a general message is think about all the people that don't want you to vote. And that should be your drive to go out and do it.
Fuck him. That's what she means. It's okay. It's okay
Just had
because
to
you
get
got
it in
us.
there.
Now screw it. He's gonna curse this whole episode. Let me get one. Look, I was very nice. You asked me.
Say, give everybody the shout out
Well,
information.
one thing, one
Oh,
before you go, I just wanted to say that going back to what we talked about before about how we can get more of like our younger demographic to vote is things like this appearing on social media podcasts and getting the word out that way. Because I feel like a lot of this generation gears towards that, like you mentioned with TikTok and stuff like that. I feel like that's important for the younger audience to know how important it is to vote. So I do appreciate you coming on and giving that to us and for our audience.
Also, not
Honestly,
to go ahead, Tay. I'm sorry.
especially with the cutoff of like people not getting as much cable as they used to now.
Yes.
Like cable's technically like there's so many alternatives to cable, like with YouTube TV, Hulu, and like Peacock TV. It's a lot easier. Like these is probably right now. This is like the one of the most successful ways to get to it.
Yeah, and not to mention, Miguelina, you mentioned earlier connecting with the candidates. You know, we got a local girl here. You know what I'm saying? We got a local story, a story that we can all appreciate, and one we all know too well. So, I think producer Jay was right when it said getting people on this platform to do these kinds of things with us is what makes it better for us.
I don't
So
think he meant
yes.
with us in general,
If
but
if you run again, you got my vote.
what you mean? I'm
Oh.
putting this on. What I'm saying it right now. If it's no ifs.
When?
Come back to make. You know what? I commit to making the announcement. If I run again, I'll announce it on
Let's
here.
go.
Let's
go.
go.
That's
Let's
amazing.
go. We got the
Great.
inside scoop. So yes,
More power.
Miguelina, again, we can't thank you enough. Thank you for coming. I'm glad Dora hooked us up because this is amazing. Tay, can you give everybody the shout out information, please?
I can. Can you act nicely though? Let me stop.
Yes, I
If
you
you,
after the show.
you ain't gonna do nothing. Anyway, if you want to reach out to us, please, you can reach out to us at email on excuse me brother podcast at gmail.com. You can reach out to us on Instagram, which is excuse underscore me underscore brother with an A, not the ER. So I know how some of you are on Instagram. You can write us up. I do check those messages all the time. You can reach us now on TikTok, which I think is also excuse. Is it any underscores in that, Jay?
Excuse me, brother. Podcast, all one word.
Excuse your brother guys on TikTok, and also you watch this on YouTube. Like, subscribe to us. Leave your comments. I do read them. They hurt, but I do read them.
Miguelina, is there any
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Miguelina, is there any contact info you want people to be able to reach you by for professional legal advice or anything of the sort?
Sure. I still have an Instagram. It's Camilo4NY. So Camilo, the number 4.
Heard it here.
Thank you very much for giving us your time and opportunity to come on this. We appreciate you very much.
Thank you guys. Big up to the vlog.
Yeah.
Yeah.